you really just can't use AI to make a cold call.
You can't really automate something you don't have, right? So there's a certain point where you just have to do some legwork.
Asimov's first rule of robots is you can do no harm.
What you're saying is the model, the large language model, isn't going to create a unique human point of view.
You can't grab a beer with the bot afterwards.
This is getting weird.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, it can drink the beer. It's just not going to enjoy it.
That's fair.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Cheat Code and Friends podcast. Today, I'm joined by Sean Kester.
What's
Sean,
going on?
what's happening?
How we doing?
Doing well. You're getting ready to head out of town.
I am. I'm excited.
You're fired up. All right, we'll maybe save that for another. We'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, right.
Our friend in today's podcast is someone I'm super excited to introduce, founder of the Justin Michael method, Justin Michael himself. I can say I'm a subscriber to the method, have used it, taught it to different folks throughout the years. I think he's a very unique individual in this space, part human, part cyborg. Justin, thanks for joining the show. Happy to have you.
Yeah, it's awesome to be on. I'm excited to be here and to talk with you guys again. I've been riding up a storm and continuing on in this glorious world of thought leadership and but trying to really merge it with being a practitioner and just going out and still, doing a ton of prospecting myself.
Love it. Well, let's get to the writing a little bit later in the show because you are a bit cyborg-like in that effect. I think you're putting out like a book every other week or something. So we'll talk about that as we go. But let's start with what we really want to drill it onto today, which is the topic of AI and sales, right? AI is prevalent everywhere, but how is it impacting sales from what you're seeing?
Yeah, so I did just write a book called Cold Call Algo, which obviously stands for algorithm, but is also an acronym. But what's really interesting now is, I was in this book called Tech Powered Sales in 2021, where we tried to predict the future of sales. We had Aaron Ross write the foreword and Mark Roberge endorsed it. And we basically said at that time, 2017, when I was doing Outbound Works this agency, we had somewhat of AI then. It kind of seems like a typewriter now because we didn't have ChatGPT. Now, I like to say that I predicted ChatGPT, but then I sound like Al Gore. I predicted the internet.
You invented the internet?
Not what I want to say. So we predicted, Tony Hughes and I, that there would be buying and selling bots. And I do think that time is coming, but it's weird because at the time in 2017, 70% of the top funnel could be automated. And then it moved to like 80%. And then we just started to get closer. But three things happened. And I drone on about this. One, LinkedIn, even with Microsoft, has not opened up its API. So you can scrape publicly available data, and they lost a case, and you can do that. And there's great ways to automate, like use Expandy or Skylead. And there's a lot of things like Copy.ai that look at publicly available data and then personalize it. They look at the prospects pages. Number two is last year, the FCC and the TCPA blocked voice-based AI. So the thing is, like, you really just can't use AI to make a cold call. And I don't know if like Trump will roll that back or the powers that be. And then the third bit is, so we have regulations around voice. We can't scrape the internet, and then it's getting harder and harder to cold call, like the cold call data. The call data is also about 30 to 40%. So using AI and algorithms to clean the list and to clean the data is really important so that you can get accurate calling. So I feel like there's a third thing, but we really can't automate as much as people think. And so you see Agentforce come out by Salesforce, and they're hiring 2,000 human reps. And that's a huge indication that we're actually not going to automate it all the way.
Yeah. So I think that's sorry, go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, I think one of the limiting factors with it is a lot of it, you have to have a good data set. So it only kind of applies to if you're prospecting into enterprise companies. Like, you're just not going to find enough information at SMB companies or people that they don't have a big online presence. And so you can't really automate something you don't have, right? So there's a certain point where you just have to do some legwork.
Yeah. And so the artificial intelligence approach, like Jamal Reimer, who's probably a mutual friend, has this wiser.ai. I'm not going to spell it right, but it basically develops a point of view. So it goes through the 10K and the 10Q and the Def 14 proxy statement, and it comes and pulls out a point of view on how to help that company. So that's going to speed you up, and you're probably going to miss it if you try to develop it on your own. But then the downside risk is that a lot of the messaging sounds really similar because the way that AI designs language, people forget that it's just pulling from a large language model and it's pulling out of a database and predicting something based on other things. So it's making salespeople all sound alike with the big M dashes. And so once you run it through AI, obviously in my method, I have these heuristics, these guardrails to make it better, right? And so you have the Asimov's first rule of robots is you can do no harm. So I say like, build me a message that is hinging on pain and fear, and it's not something that you can really do. And so what I'm doing a lot is having people move away from pain and using things like fear of missing out and having the text, say something like, we were stressed out, we were hemorrhaging money, and it's really hard to get the LLM to write for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it almost sounds like you can go again, information gathering using AI to help you like craft what's going on within that company, but you still have to come up with a point of view, right? Like what you're saying is the model, the large language model isn't going to create a unique human point of view.
Exactly. Yeah. And you kind of have to humanize it and make it sound authentic. And so you can't really over rely on the writing. So that's just one piece. I don't know how crazy AI is going to get where you can just go into a sequencer and say, build it all out. I mean, there's things like clay.com, which sort of pull data into a unified spreadsheet, but I think that'll even go away, or they'll evolve to a new flavor of that,
One of the things that I always took from your teaching, and maybe this is something you're still doing or you've changed your point of view on it a little bit, but I always like the short, messy, communicate with people, like especially through email and stuff, like you're texting another executive. Like that's my go-to for everything. And that being short, choppy, ugly is more human than anything you're going to get out of AI, right?
It's very hard to tell AI, hey, chop it up, make it look like a text message. And even when you use those commands, it really doesn't, it's not short and ugly and bad grammar and weird syntax. And it's like the dust and scratches factor. So it's kind of like Star Wars, like the Jar Jar Binks era, where it was all so perfect. And now you have like a New Hope where they zoom in on a spaceship and it's like in Dune, it's like it's dirty and scratched and looks real. And there's like dust, and that's the key is when stuff is too anesthetized and too perfect, it's really easy to feel that it's CGI or it's been edited. And then this question of like, we all know we're using AI and 90% of the content is generated on the internet. So that doesn't even matter. Like I thought it would get to a point where I'd send Josh a message and it just says sent from Justin's AI, or I call him. It's like, hey, Justin's AI is calling you. And you're like, oh, I'll have my AI answer it. And then the two AIs are just talking, and then like, is human going to be an option? And in some of my books, I talk about the nostalgia, like wearing a normal watch and not an iWatch. Will you pay more money so you can talk to a human? You don't really need to. Like, you want to learn how to black diamond ski at Mammoth Mountain. So do you want to have the Musk bot? I mean, 99% success rate. It'll take you up. It'll teach you to ski. It's a bot. I'm going to be like, no, I want the human. But why? The bot might be better, but it's weird. We have an attachment to humanity.
Can't grab a beer with the bot afterwards.
I mean, it can drink the beer. It's just not going to enjoy it.
That's fair.
Or I can pretend to. I can pretend to. This is getting weird.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, no, it's all about getting a little bit weird. Well, it sounds like you're leading very heavily on the human side of things, especially for salespeople, right? And where should they be indexing on AI? You've obviously talked about research, pulling info from 10Ks and kind of, matching stuff up. But you mentioned earlier in 2017, 80% of the funnel was being automated in the top. So let's dive into that a little bit. Like, what are some of the things that people aren't thinking about?
Yeah, so the reason I called it cold call algo is because out of the last 200 companies that I've trained, 100% of them are getting the most meetings from the phone. And so using AI for phone is the exoskeleton around the cold call. So one, there's solutions like Titan X, like you can feed it Zoom info data, feed it Cognism, and it scrolls through and it figures out, okay, of these 2,000, these 200 people pick up. So only 20% of the population picks up. But then again, a
Interesting.
lot of people listen to voicemails. So then Connect and Sell ran research on, I don't know, 100 million calls it has, but it did 10 million recently. And 50% of the meetings were set through fully navigated dials. So that means using the phone trees and going through, IVRs. So
Hmm.
this whole idea of getting cell phone data isn't the holy grail. It's only about 7% of the data set. So where artificial intelligence comes in is you targeting with AI, then figuring out, the hyper personalization with AI, then listening back to your call recording for what you could have done better, your listen to talk ratio, your beats per minute, your what would almost be emotional intelligence AI, which could be happening in real time on a Zoom call later in the sales process. And then after the fact, how do you follow up omni-channel? And I'm really focused on top of funnel here, but I would still say that you physically calling people now with human verified and channel validated numbers is your fastest path to book a meeting. And that's because emails are setting 1 in 1,000. So you look at any email agency and they have 15 to 50 inboxes, right? 10 domains, 20 domains. It's nuts. I know this one clay agency, he sends 150,000 emails per month and he got like 7 meetings.
Yeah.
This is ludicrous at this point, right? So very hard to crack email, even with tools like Clay and Instantly and Smartly. Even if you get really good at all that stuff, it's like, wow, I spent 20 hours making the perfect Clay table and does all this personalization. I'm like, 20 hours, that's awesome. Within 2 hours, I just booked like 4 meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter how good your email is. If you just don't, if they don't read it, it's never going to make an impact, right? And so the only
Yeah.
way to do that is through a live conversation.
Well, what people forget, and I know this is like really basic to be promoting, but if you have a 40% email open rate, you're already like God mode. It's amazing. That means 60% of the time you're not seen. So if you send one hyper personalized email, you have you have no chance of it being seen.
Hmm.
Right? You have like a fourth chance. So you have like 60% chance it'll be seen. So the thing I talk about is really just omni-channel. So you want to take the same messaging kind of, or the same point of view and take it across the channels, which is a little repetitive and redundant, but you have to do it. So like if I want to get in front of Sean, I'll leave him a voicemail that's similar in theme to the LinkedIn messaging sequence. And LinkedIn's really about a DM choreography and not a one-off. And, then I might send you a cutting board in the mail. Can we carve out some time? I don't know, like it's about hitting all the channels with a point of view, because eventually one gets through and they check it, and that's going to be the conversion point. So I think the whole like mastering a single channel doesn't work. That's what I got.
Well, you mentioned a couple times hyper personalization, but then I remember, and maybe it was your first book or one of the books you talked about, personalization doesn't matter. Relevance is what matters. So can you talk to me about those two concepts and how you use them?
Yep. So this is a classic tale. So basically, like there's a big fissure, like a split in the way people looked at it. I mean, of course, if I can go to Josh Wagner's LinkedIn page and look at his whole work history and all his recommendations and everything he's done the first page of Google, sure, I could do that. And that's probably going to marginally help me. But there's another thing that might repel him, because why did I have that much time? And isn't that a little creepy and salesy? So Aaron Ross said that over 20% personalization starts to become creepy. Now, it's really about efficiency. If you're going after 200 accounts or even 50 accounts, you just might not have time to slow down and hyper personalize. So the way I look at it is a hierarchy, like a pyramid. Like the more you're at the frontline operators targeting, this is fully automated. Then the higher up you go to like mid-level managers, VPs, this is semi-automated, slated, personalized. Then the very top, like the C levels, that's where you hyper personalize. Because what are you going to do? You're going to send like the CEO of Verizon 27 emails. I emailed the CMO of Verizon once. I was like, take me off the list, right? So that's like how I call it, the personalization pyramid. And then relevance at scale, people don't understand this. So first of all, just like the words sequence and cadence are interchanged for software sales, personalization and relevance are really similar words. But think of it this way. If you want to send relevant messaging, think of it like ads, like ad targeting. So I wouldn't say target Josh. Where are you based, Josh? Are you in New York, LA?
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Hell yeah, cool. So I wouldn't say target Josh in Scottsdale. No, I would say target men, in their late 20s, who are in
What a
the
guy.
in the Southwest. I got to give some credit. Was this like a Brian Johnson guy who's like like their biological age or whatever? Like they're testing
Yeah.
this stuff. It's hilarious. It's like I'm epigenetically 22 right now, but
Hey,
yeah,
the shoe
with
fits.
ads. Yeah, with ads, you do regions. So that's how I figured it out with sequencing. I was like, instead of going through and taking 200 people and writing a message all 200, let's use Occam's razor to break this into 3 parts. What we've really got here is we've got a bunch of VPs sitting in e-commerce, and then we've had this like C-levels, or we have a bunch of strategics and then a bunch of technicals and then some that are strategic and technical. So it's thinking of the minimum viable level of sequences and then doing like relevant messaging to them. So then you don't have to go down to the persona. You've got this bucket in outreach or smart lead. We've got 200 people. They're all VPs of e-commerce. They all have and then you give a use case or a case study or something that will resonate. So you don't have to take it down to the fine grain. But I just think with your VIPs, like if you have 200 accounts, you really only have 200 CEOs, 200 CFOs. So it's worth slowing down and going, okay, of these 200, 80-20, right? What are the 20% that are most fit ICP? Now I've got what, 40 CFOs? I might send them a FedEx. I might slow way down and run the point of view and find an exact pull quote from their 10K, because it's worth doing that level of sophistication. The amount of reps that are sitting in analysis paralysis, like spending hours on personalization, it's way better just, get a power dialer and hit the phones and just talk to live humans.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think those use cases are what matters, right? If you're thinking about relevance, it's all coming up with a use case that you've solved for somebody else that looks, smells, feels, tastes like them. And then how do you position that up in a way that you can get their attention, right? One of the channels may work, 10 of them might not, but you're serving that use case up in a way that matters.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you may not know this. Sean was early days sales loft. So the sequencing cadence concept is certainly one that when you fell off there for a second, you're talking about LinkedIn scraping data. What was that
Yeah.
story you were saying, Sean?
We were so SalesLoft's original product was called Prospector, and it was just a list building tool, and it went and wrote along with you as a Chrome plugin, and it would scrape the publicly available data off LinkedIn, and we would append email and phone number. And so we got the first nastygram from LinkedIn way back in, I think, 2014, 2015. And we weren't going to take it to court or anything like that, but I had to quickly switch and sunset that product, and then we focused on Cadence. But to your point, they've never opened up that API.
Which is really interesting, right? And I understand their business model, obviously, but usually once Microsoft takes something over, they're just like, game on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess
But
what happens
it's like
is,
the only value of Navigator is like getting more data, right? Being able to
right?
import into your CRM.
So ultimately, when you have a marketplace like that, you have sort of like a problem where you have the recruiting function, but then you also sell to each other. So you have to be so careful on how people transact like that. One of the things I love on LinkedIn is video drops, but they don't really tell you about the video messaging capability, because can you imagine the AWS bill if 1 billion people started video dropping? But, maybe they have unlimited. I don't know. They can just open up a nuclear power plant or something.
Yeah, who knows? Well, one of my buddies is in big commercial construction, and he's telling me he's spending a ton of time in the Midwest, Texas right now, literally building massive data centers all over the middle of the country, because he says it's an arms race, right? Like AWS, Google, and OpenAI, like they're just trying to figure out how can I get as much compute power going as possible. So it's happening, and it's big projects.
Well, LinkedIn won't be the only game in town forever. I was on MySpace in 2004, and I had 200,000 something followers. I don't even know what they're called anymore,
Friends,
Yeah, so I'm like
right?
the elder statesman of this stuff. But yeah, if you're looking to get into AI, I mean, a lot of people are learning Clay and 8N. But as I predicted in tech-powered sales, is the best sellers are becoming sales engineers and they're becoming technical. Fine, if that's you. If not, go the other way. Learn consulting. Be strategic. Get comfortable sitting with C-levels and speaking CXO, as we used to say at Salesforce, because the ability to solution, the ability to build consensus among a boardroom of 10 people, that's something machines just can't do, like with all the human compute. So like if you're strategic in what you're doing, your job's really not going to be disintermediated. You need people on your team that understand AI. So that's why I haven't really rolled up my sleeves and learned Clay or become an expert at that, even though in the last iteration I was very good with Outreach and SalesLoft and Zapier and all these tools, because I really think we're going to go to a low code or codeless environment. And so where I'm really focusing for top funnel, and what's made my system very different is I've gone back and looked at, Miller Hyman, target account selling, Mike Bosworth, Charles
Yeah.
H. Green, new power-based selling, diagnostic business development, all the ologies and osophies of the 90s, the mid 2000s. These folks are aging out. They're 80, 85 now, some late 70s. I know them all. People like Mahan Khalsa. There's just so many amazing people that wrote the canon of strategic selling books to close a 6 and 7 figure deal. And then you get to the top funnel and it's like Wrestler Bros and Jeb Blunt, and like he sold uniforms, and you have like Keenan, who's like aspiring model and ski instructor and blogger, and like there's like
Yeah.
you start to find that no one has done outbound, and you find that there's no rigor to it. So like Justin Michael Method became the most rigorous system ever made because I wanted to. Like I have 10 books, 9 in my name. It's excessive. Just pick a couple.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about the books. It seems like you're putting out a new book every other month. I get a LinkedIn DM from you. Check it out. I'm like, oh man, another one. We
Yeah.
wrote one and my life was like on hold for a year.
I get that. Yeah, it's sort of an addiction or a disease. Like I waited till I was 40 and then I got 3 book deals, Wiley, HarperCollins, and now I found this indie publisher in the desert. He's near you. I think he's in Arizona actually, but not
Okay.
in the like, high end part, the bougie part. It's somewhere.
Yeah, that's where I spend
else.
most of my time, in the bougie parts.
I'm just messing with you. No, it's Scottsdale is beautiful. It's like Beverly Hills of the desert. But yeah. So he is like former Navy. He's had this publishing company for 13 years. He's the #1 independent publisher in America. I think he's at like 200 bestsellers. So we've just been a hit factory. I mean, I think I'm on like the 6th book or something. Like I just wrote one with Charles Needham, and I've started doing collaborations with my clients. But the guy I just wrote with, he like is a rep at Titan X, and so all he does all day is sit on power dialers and actually dog food this, because like I'm getting older and I still do cold calls for events and different things. It's more strategic, it's more laser pointer, but I'm not the guy now sitting for 8 hours a day calling. So I really wanted to bring that credibility in. So I've started to do collaborations like what you guys are doing, just to give a yin and yang perspective and bring different life experiences and generations. And I'm starting to cross over. I'm starting to write books that are more on the level of maybe Warren Claff or Robert Greene, and dealing with like meta concepts like persuasion and frame and people's self-esteem and courage. Because what I realize is just through all the repetition, all the crazy stuff I did, I have a lot of courage. Now that gets mistaken as ego when I'm out on social media, and I kind of play that up. I do my Roger Stone and my Donald Trump thing, but that's not how I am in the real world. It just sells books.
But that's how stuff plays on social media, right?
Right. Like Will Smith doesn't cuss on his records, and that's why Eminem sells, 100x the records.
Yeah. So for you, the book, like I know we've mentioned this on the podcast before when we rolled out our book. The writing of the book was actually the easy part. It was the promotion and getting eyeballs on it and book sales and things like that. And for us, the ultimate game is just an expensive business card, right? Like, listen, we invest in these types of companies. We deploy this method of operator immersive capital. Here's the proof point, right? So whether it's a founder or a VC that we're co-investing with, we're just saying, hey, look, we mean what we say, and here's the proof point. For you, what is the book? I mean, you're obviously, the Justin Michael method is out there. You can learn it, right? But what is it for you?
Yeah. So most of the consultants I work with, and I have a lot of them build books and work on Jeremy Jones Publishing. So I think what you guys did is the perfect model, because it's a calling card, it's credibility, it's the deeper touch points. I have been at this for 10 years, from ghostwriting to writing. I have 1,000 reviews on my books. I'm somewhere in the upper 1%. I've sold like a stadium full of books, so it's something good. I'm not Hormozy by any stretch. And for me, that's exactly it. Like, someone comes in my funnel, wants to get personal consulting. They typically watch these podcasts. They read 2 or 3 of the books in full. The beauty, though, is all the ICPs I serve. So I have a book, Justin Michael Method 3.0, which is attraction selling. It's law of attraction. It's metaphysics. It's not, as crazy as some of the stuff going on in Arizona, like, lucid dreaming and astral projection to other planets, or nothing that crazy. It's just sort of hinted at, but it's a lot of just like mindset and visualization and stuff in sales. And I was so worried about putting it out. I thought it was like too woo woo and a little crazy. And every single person's like, "Oh, I'm into Dispenza. I'm meditating, man. I'm living in the future right now in my mind. I'm in the 4th dimension, like city of Atlantis." And like pretty much all the salespeople are way out. which is cool. So I did that one. And then I've got one just purely for consultants called Seven Figure Formula. I've got a bunch like Sales Superpowers, which is, straight up the middle, neuroscience backed techniques and things that came out of my Codex guides that I released to Reddit. And now it's really like I'm trying to dig way deep and say, well, what is the mindset and identity, sort of the psycho-cybernetics? Like, who do you have to be? Like, Josh and Sean are going to go meet with a VC. Well, someone else might get sweaty palms or not sleep because that's really terrifying because, you through an elaborate set of experience have the confidence to do this type of work. Where, I still run into a lot of people who are really scared to go on their own. They really struggle around money, wealthy people that make $1 million a year. They don't know how to be like a peer. And I know Sandler talked about that, equal business stature. It's one thing to say it, but how do you build up your confidence to the level that you can do 6 and 7 figure deals?
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like the stuff you're talking about before, Sean, we should maybe go down the Burning Man rabbit hole, or we.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to be out there for 2 weeks. I need to bring your books with me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're going to be in the 4th dimension. I watch a lot of the La Playa DJ sets like Jan Blomqvist, and I love Rufus de Sol, that good.
Yeah.
It's Fred again. But yeah, this is flying by.
But who's actually reading these books though? Like who's your audience? Is it SDRs? You need to have a separate. It's like, are you trying to get it to people that are really early in their career and focusing on top of the funnel, or are you looking at more execs, or who's your niche?
It's probably a hot mess. I mean, I would love to say I'm really targeted. I mean, I feel like when people think about like Josh Braun or Beck Holland or, some of the top SDR minds, I come up in that list. I think when it comes to really top of funnel innovation, I sit there next to people like maybe Dale Dupree or Stu Heineck because my stuff is a little out there. A lot of times I'm misinterpreted as being like too advanced or sophisticated or hard to use, but the stuff is pretty simple when you break it down. I have trained 65 reps at HubSpot. They saw 4.6 lift in pipeline. Shameless plug. But yeah, I've done a lot of SDR team trading. I've worked with over 200 startup teams in the last 5 years and 1,000 people one-to-one. Right now, though, because my fees are expensive. I mean, I really service people that have over 15 years experience. It's very interesting though. 5% of Americans make over $335,000 a year. And, 1 in 100 people are probably just wealthy. So that you spiky hair kid at the bar, he's probably like the heir to a tire fortune. You don't know because, 75% of people working in America are under 44 years old. So the millennial Gen Z, right? So there's just really a tremendous opportunity for consulting. Consulting annually is $1 trillion a year. Crazy. $1 trillion. I should do the Dr. Evil, so
yeah, $1 trillion.
A big piece of my business now is training people to do side hustles and to be fractionals and how it like consulting in a box, which is what 7 Figure Formula was about. I have a P-51 Mustang on the cover, which was the plane from Top Gun Maverick, which I think Tom Cruise actually owns and flies. That was his own plane. That's so badass. Can you imagine? Like, I'll just bring in my warplane. Hold on. I can just fly that onto the set.
The legend keeps growing.
It's too good.
Yeah.
He doesn't age,
Anecdotally,
by
I've
the way.
also seen, no, he does not. I think anecdotally, I've seen a lot more people go out in the fractional world since COVID. And I don't know if that's just because at my stage in career, my peers all started doing that at the same time because they got to a level in which they had enough experience to do that. Or if it was a culmination of right place, right time in the market and the ability to work, like being able to work remotely or just the ease of starting a business. Do you have any thoughts on that?
There's been an explosion of fractionality and there's a couple theories. And I think you're absolutely right. You have to be at a level of seniority where you can consult. I think one of the things is when there's jitters in the economy, either through geopolitics or tariffs, instead of, laying people off, sometimes there's like a reduction of force or base salaries get lowered, and that creates like insecurity over finances. So people start looking for a dual income. We're living in the gig economy. That's another mega trend. And then there's just a lot of platforms and portals and ways that you can do consulting. And I think just like we don't wear suits anymore, I think a lot of employers are just open to their employees taking on fractional. And I think like the hiring is different. Like you're thinking, do I want a full-time CMO that's going to churn out every 18 months, or do I want a fractional marketing leader that's working with 3 or 4 companies that are non-competitive that's going to bring that expertise in-house? So It's somewhere in there. I think if the economy gets really strong again, people are going to go back into full-time roles because they have these CRO positions with a ton of equity. I mean, I have some CROs I coach that are getting 750, even $1 million package, which is pretty crazy. That gets kind of hard
Yeah.
to replace, but there's a lot of jobs where you could actually make more cash flow by going into business for yourself, being fractional, doing consulting. You get more write-offs, just different. So, yeah.
I love people who can sell consulting personally because
Yeah.
obviously I did it, but I do think that idea of being able to sell something that's not tangible is
Hmm.
super powerful, right? Like there's nothing to demo, there's nothing to sales engineer. Like the sales engineering, right, is like really digging deep in discovery, figuring out what's going on in the company, what levers can you pull and how can you make it exciting. So, I think people who can sell consulting have a leg up on the rest of the market.
Absolutely.
40% of employees side hustle. So in all the states where you have exclusivity and W-2 and you're not allowed to legally, it's moonlighting.
Mm,
40% still do. And there's not much people can do. And in California, it's awesome, right? Because you can just, I mean, literally Mark Benioff left Oracle and started the competitor to Oracle across the street and he called it cloud and was still just on servers. So
Right.
there's no non-solicited, no non-competes. You can kind of do what you want. My philosophy is you hire someone as long as they do the job well, right? Then manage your time. But I've talked to people and they're like, I just thought they were all golfing. Like, why are all the sellers on the team so busy when I get a hold of us? Because they have 4 jobs. That's why.
yeah, exactly. How have you seen, fractional work in reality, right? Like, I think that's one of the challenges, even in our portfolio. We've had tests with bringing in fractional resources, maybe at the marketing level, sales level early on, instead of getting someone in the seat. And we've struggled with it, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, if you take on fractionality, 2 or 3 clients at 15 grand each, you're making 45 grand a month. You're like, wow, this is good money. Problem is, you have 3 CEOs, 3 boards,
Right.
3 teams, so it can be blowtorch pressure, and you're working 26 hours a day. So I really encourage people to do more paid advisory so they can stack it, because you can take on 10 clients at 5K each, and it's a lot less pressure. So that's where you get into that 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month. That's why I call it 7-figure formula, because then you can get to like $100,000 plus cash flow a month, which is a nice living. I mean, to buy an outhouse in Scottsdale is probably $1 million these days. I don't know.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and to your point, you're not over indexed on three clients. You lose one, you just zonked a third of your income, right?
That's
So,
true. Ooh.
yeah. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
big piece of the puzzle there.
that was like in Mad Men. They were always worried about losing this, the RJ Reynolds, the cigarette company, because it was like most of the agency. So
Yeah,
Don was always
exactly.
handling the cigarette company. Yeah, that's true. But people do it. They do it effectively. There's all these weird collectives like Sales Acceleration and Chief Outsiders, and they like market for you. It's sort of like a Vistage thing. It's like a zero if you pay a fee for the marketing. But what I teach is really interesting. It's more like Earl Nightingale. Like he's really known for that strangest secret thing he did in the 50s, but he had this quote that you analyze any market and you see what the majority of people are doing and you do the opposite, which really just sounds like George Costanza. But for me, the top 3 people I've seen doing what I do is like Ian Koniak, Scott Leese, and myself. But I'm so weird because I'm kind of pulled back on content posting. I write a lot of books, but I go crazy in the DM. So someone like opens their DM and they've had like 60 plus messages, and I have 15,000 sellers, and probably 100% of them had 60 messages. So sometimes like in the other tab, and they finally open it and they're like, "Whoa, 60 messages." But it's not the volume. There's a ton of creativity in my outbound campaigns, from something as simple as like book design covers to complex surveys, like getting people to like in the books early to help me write them. So I put hundreds of people in the books, and in some cases thousands, and then I really take all the feedback. What do I do in this scenario? I don't like this isn't believable, and then I rewrite it. So I've never really seen an author work that way, with so much collaboration with the audience.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think my big takeaway from this conversation in general is, obviously you are a tech forward person when it comes to sales and how you do your thing, but the human part of it is everything, right? I mean, anything from like the heretics you talk about, relevance and scale, all of that is human. None of it is really, the tech is powering it on the back end, but it's really not an AI first motion in any stretch.
No, I don't have the situation where I have like AI SDRs and I just set them loose. I mean, I've had people in, offshore in my profile from Denmark to India, and it's cool. They do a good job. But the problem is at some point someone says, "Hey, are you a bot?" Especially with my background. And I'm
Right.
like, well, if I had a bot this good, I'd be a billionaire because I'm having like a deep conversation. They're like, this must be one of your bots. I'm like, no, this is
Yeah,
not one of my
exactly.
bots. And I think you can deploy that and people are trying to do it. But what's really weird is there's all this fanfare like top funnel's dead, it's been replaced, and people are fine. I don't see anybody getting fired. I think I saw today some billionaire fired 150 people, but they weren't salespeople. Yeah. So I don't know. Are you seeing a lot of SDRs, and are you in your portfolio companies getting laid off? Are people optimizing out the top funnel? What's happening?
We're what do you say, Sean? Like we don't do a lot of SDRs. Like we primarily
Yeah,
are advocating for full cycle at this stage.
because well, I mean, a lot of our companies are vertical. Well, all of our portfolio companies are selling to vertical SaaS, and that's
Correct.
part by and large. Like they have a smaller pool, and it's very niche, and you can do full cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that you have to have a critical mass in you have to have proven your ability to sell into that market to a certain
Right.
level to justify a bunch of SDRs, right? Like just throwing a bunch of SDRs at the market to me is almost counterintuitive. Like I'd rather the seller learn from that bit
Yeah.
of outbound they have to do. And like to Justin's point earlier, like have those conversations. Like you're not going to learn
Right.
anything more than having conversations with people. So go
Well,
have them, go figure out what's going on, and then go sell those deals. And then, maybe you get to a point where you're maxed out because you're crushing it. And an SDR makes sense, but maybe not.
right. Well, I mean, like we've got a portfolio company where they have a known TAM of like 4,000 companies into a certain market, and they've got an average deal size of like $8,000. There's like,
Right.
like doesn't support a 10-person, sales motion, sales engineers
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
SDRs and
Exactly.
whatnot. So there's a lot of factors in play, but I think vertical tends to probably be more full cycle than a horizontal solution.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak in absolutes. I don't think it'll never work, but I think it is, like I said, there's a learning curve that makes sense in terms
Hmm.
of, that having those conversations, learning the market. We're in early stage companies, right? And I think we put out a note on our most recent podcast with Fasant, where he's like, right at this stage, you're either building or selling, right? So let's go out and learn as much as we can about the market, especially if it's a vertical, small vertical
Hmm.
market. But before we tie off here, and I don't know if Justin will make it back, but one other thing he said that I thought was interesting is the quality of people interacting with bots, right? Like I'm sitting in a portfolio company right now that does AI call intelligence, right? And part of that is the market is clamoring for a voice bot, a voice AI agent to answer the phone so that they can replace staff. But the reality of it, that's what they think they want until it gets put into practice. And everyone who interacts with that bot knows it's a bot. And they say, zero, send me to a human or whatever it is. So I think there are different agents that can play a role and provide value, but just saying that you're going to put an AI agent at the front end of a phone call and expect people to interact with it in the way that you want them to is still a false narrative. Like it's just not always going to happen.
You you can get opt-in, so you can create a situation where people opt in to be called by an agent. So on the customer service side, you can, if you're calling in, they can answer with an agent. So there's loopholes. It's just how do you get opt-in from the front end? You're going to contact strangers and say, "Hey, please accept an inbound AI call." I just don't think
That's
there's
right.
openness. And I think once prospects knew that, they would set up an AI as a screener or a filter. So that's really interesting about like iOS 26 and having that interstitial pop-up that comes up and says, "Hey, what's this about?" And that's where you're really going to have to use AI so it doesn't look like AI and it's good enough point of view, because then you're actually going to screen it. You're going to read it and be like, "Oh, I see this is AI written. I'm not even going to accept this." So it's tricky. I think AI will get good enough and varied enough that you actually can't tell it's AI. And that'll be really wild when it's past the Turing test now, but we can see the patterns because there's too much repetition in the way it writes. So
But couldn't you just get another AI bot to tell you that it was an AI bot in the first place?
yeah, you can detect it. Like you can run that in Grammarly in certain systems. So yeah, so I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I mean, the bottom line is if you want to be successful in 2026, it's about leveraging AI to augment yourself, not actually for volume, but more for power. So you're dialing cleaner lists of the right people, maybe even at the right time of day, and you know the triggers and you know the reason, maybe you know some intent. So, and it's expensive to be able to do that. It's not something that's working out of the box. So that's what attracted me to Titan and I kind of promote it pretty shamelessly in the book because, you know, some companies are doing call center stuff to try to verify lists, to human verify, they're hitting APIs and scraping. But if you're looking at millions of points of data and using algorithms to clean the data to understand who are P1, priority one, and then priority two. Like if you have a priority one, I have Josh Wagner's cell phone. Why would I 10x dial you or even 4x dial you? I would just call you probably 7 times over 10 days without any voicemails till you picked up. That would probably be the best thing. So now dialers like Orem HQ they have 2 modes. They have like power dialing and parallel dialing, because if you have the number, you're better off power dialing, and if you don't, then that's where you can profit off the volume approach.
Fantastic. Well, like you said, Justin, we've covered a lot of ground here. We absolutely appreciate your insights. Where can people go to learn more about you, the Justin Michael method, and the 1,000 books that you've written?
Yeah, so if you just go to Amazon.com and put in Justin Michael, you'll find me. You'll find me on LinkedIn with my obnoxious posts, challenging the industry, just as Justin Michael. It's that simple. I have some websites, but I don't really have a website, but that's more just to prove a point. And yeah, reviews save lives. If you do read Cold Call Algo, there's a bunch of Easter eggs in there from actual call recordings of us you can hear, to math of sales calculators, to a bunch of like cold call openers that you can test. So we always have some Easter eggs that we're giving away.
Fantastic. Well, Justin, really appreciate you having. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks,
All
you
right.
guys.
And then for those of you listening for the first time, please give us a like, subscribe, all of those different things. It is the Go-to-Market Cheat Code and Friends podcast. You can find us on all your major podcast platforms and on YouTube. Until next time, this has been Cheat Code and Friends.